This is about to be a bit different from the usual videos I post here. Still about 4chan, still scary and dark and ooh too spooky, but sometimes there are some fucked up niche threads made on this basket weaving website. Hence the name, because it's disturbing. And it's also 4chan, and we're talking about threads. Disturbing 4chan threads. 4chan's adult GIF board contains mostly just adult content. I mean, it's in the fucking name. A wide variety of often downright degenerate content ranging from gold-plated showers to recorded street fights and gore. But then there's thread topics that exist within their own bracket of GIF. Topics that are no longer simply degenerate and subjective. Confession threads, similar to Reddit's r/confession. People post their darkest, most horrific experiences under the false pretense that they're anonymous. On Reddit, people often use throwaway accounts. But there's no such thing as having an account on 4chan. Actually, if you give yourself a nickname, people will often ignore you or they go out of their way to harass you. So there are no usernames, no accounts to log in and out of. You simply hop on 4chan, you comment, and then you can close. But you can never leave.
Don't forget, you're here forever.
The issue is that a lot of these people think this gives them immunity to post their most horrific confessions. It's not just one or two bad users, though. People in these threads hype up and want the personal details of everything that happened. In college, I lived in an apartment next to two ballerinas. One weekend while they were gone, I was trying to break into their place and discovered that my apartment's key worked in their door. Boy, did this open up some opportunities. During winter break, I would spend entire days in their apartment. I would lay naked in their beds, smoking pot, and dreaming about them. I violated them horribly, without them ever knowing. Posted my cheating ex-wife's nudes all over the internet. She got doxxed and stalked. I wish I knew the extent of her family and friends that found out. Deleted my collection, so I didn't keep doing it. Didn't want to end up arrested. I still see her pop up here and there. But what if they're just making things up to be edgy? What if they're just writing fiction? That's the approach I take for Reddit stories sometimes, but fiction or non-fiction, the feds should be looking at some of these people's hard drives. This is unfortunately very normalized behavior. You'll see most people talk and behave like this. But to have threads dedicated to your worst actions and you decide to brag about it so other people can be satisfied.
That's fucking disgusting.
But it isn't always based around sex crimes. Again, it's a confession thread. Anything goes. I killed someone in self-defense a few years ago. It actually cured my depression, if I'm being honest. I try not to talk about it with friends or coworkers, since it inevitably brings some Billy badass that will say a bunch of bullshit to seem tough. I'll bring the depression thing to the grave with me, though. That's not something I can see going over well with people. How the fuck does killing someone cure your depression? So, to keep a long story short, after the whole ordeal, I guess I had a new lease on life. Colors seemed brighter. I could appreciate the wind on my skin. Sappy shit like that. Basically, I'm no longer plagued by constant negative thoughts, and actually want to go outside and have the energy to do it. I guess taking a life made me appreciate my own. Buy some heroin in 2022 to end my life. Pussy out until a few days later, when I finally say, fuck it. Smoke the big bit of it I got in just one go, hoping this would end my life. Does not end my life. Instead, I'm just very high and relaxed, and I listen to music, and I enjoy the feeling. 4 years later, still addicted to smoking it with no end in sight. Not suicidal anymore. I ended my life, but at a slower rate. You thought about rehab? Not interested. Normally, kick at home. Normally, like, use for a week, then kick for a month, then use 2 days, then kick for a week, then use for 2 weeks straight, and feel so lovely that I will get addicted to it again. Then kick and try until I stay off until inevitable relapse. I am so up and down on it. I can hold a job and pay bills. Still using for the euphoric effects. If it stops working as nice, I take a break for a while, and the effects come back. I shot 14 people in Iraq. Not particularly fucked up, considering their way of life, but there are people out there who think all life is precious. As someone who did tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, if shooting them is the most fucked up thing you did, then you would seem like a saint compared to some of the stuff I've seen there. I didn't often take part though. Firsthand witnessed the joy of being a village police in Afghanistan. Little boys locked in the cells for their own amusement, and all we could do is file a report. Funnily enough, the Afghans were usually the ones to do stuff with the boys where I was. A few soldiers did too, but the Americans usually stuck to the girls. I didn't go nearly as young as I've seen some of them go though. I had at least a little bit of morals. However, most of the comments and media in these threads are based around assault. Wait, I'm a YouTuber. I forgot I have to be soulless and call it grape. Stories upon stories upon stories of guys discussing how they assault their siblings, their family members, their ex-partners, and other people's children. Why don't they seek help? Because, deep down, they don't ever want to stop. "4chan is rather infamous for its archive system. Some archives don't start until years later, and some archives don't even contain other boards. So, in order to lurk through this thread, I had to use the Wayback Machine in order to use an archive of this thread. An archive of an archive. The Wayback Machine did not archive any of the images posted in this thread. Perhaps that's a good thing. It's 2011. A thread begins with the OP discussing urban exploration, stating they found a creepy tunnel in their basement. We have no idea where it goes or how deep it is. We have enough extension cords and a light, but we don't have any actual flashlights. What do we do, X? Comments begin flooding in, and OP announces that they're going to explore and take photos along the way. Of course, said photos can't be loaded though. 14 minutes later, a picture gets posted by OP with the caption, "I went halfway and saw this. I'm going back in, and I'll post pics." Funny enough, people immediately begin to discover that this is already beginning to be a hoax, which is very common. So Anons begin to flame the OP and make jokes about how OP suddenly died and that's why he's not responding. Another user posts a photo, assumingly a photo of a dead person, jokingly stating, "OP's dead body." Where did you find this pic? It looks like my missing ex. She dropped off the face of the earth one day and nobody knows where she is. A user with the trip code name goes here leaves a haunting comment, one which causes the thread to erupt in activity. At first, Anons think he's playing a bit or he's joking, so they joke along. Despite there being no pictures available as of today, the common description of the photo is as follows. A female corpse with red hair, facial features deteriorated, eyes may be missing, and supposedly, lips are missing as well, based on the crude jokes that everyone was making. I'm losing it here. I just emailed the pic to our old city's police and fucking God, I just don't know. Once others began to realize this is no longer a joke, name goes here spirals further, asking for any sort of information available. Posters begin saying that the image has been displayed in gore threads for a while now, if not for years. I don't go into gore threads. The last time I talked to her was in August 2008. Someone claims the image is from 2006, but others state that they haven't seen it until around 2010. Suddenly, the thread goes from urban exploration to serial killer analysis for an unknown man's ex-girlfriend. I don't want to say the name with all of the trolls here, but she lived on the East Coast near Jersey, and that confused me. I understand not wanting to deal with trolls when sharing personal information, but this isn't your personal information. This is the name of a missing person who's been gone for, according to you, Almost 3 whole years. Not sharing the name doesn't make any sense. The poster points out the hypocrisy and states, "Make a thread. Post pics of the mutilated girl in here. Post pics of your ex-girlfriend. If she really is missing, it's not like it matters if you post her picture. Let the internet detectives get to work. What if some seriously fucked up shit is out there?" Name Goes Here responds about how he doesn't want 4chan to mess up the pics of their ex, and I guess, sort of understand that, but again, she's apparently missing. As in, she is nowhere to be found. Internet trolls photoshopping her image should be the least of your worries. But he states that he forwarded the gore photo to the authorities. Again, someone points out the hypocrisy of their logic, and asks if Name Goes Here was ever in contact with their ex's family. Wouldn't it make you feel better to have closure on the situation if it actually was her? Even if it hurts you that she died. It's better than not knowing, right? Have you spoken to her family? I don't know. Her mother didn't like me, and is hospitalized with dementia anyway, and her father pulled the same thing a few years back. Just up and disappeared. The last contact I had with any of her family was her brother, but he died last year. I'm seriously fucking sick right now. I come into a thread expecting to see cool cave pictures and... fuck. By this point, I can't help but begin to think this story is fake. Crazier things have happened on this website, but the logic of not wanting to share vital information for a missing person, plus this backstory of her mom has dementia, her dad vanished, and her brother is dead feels too coincidental, and I guess that might sound shitty, but suddenly, the poster falls to peer pressure and goes to look for old photos of her. 10 minutes later, and I blacked out a bit of her face. Picture 1 and picture 2. The thread seems to pause for a moment, frozen in disbelief. Nobody wants to troll me now? Or is everyone too busy searching TinEye? Finally, the tide shifts. Well, that does look a lot like her. Holy shit, that looks just like her. Not that I believe this, but it does look like the girl in the picture. Okay, I feel awful for you, dude. And if I was the praying type, I'd be doing it right now for you and all. If you look at the original picture where she's dead, you can see that her hair has grown out 2 to 3 inches since its last dye job, consistent with her going missing. Dude, hair color's a good match. Her chin pretty much matches the dead girl's. Breast size seems to match. Some Anon should have some kind of sauce on the dead girl's photo, right? I'm so sorry. I wanted to say that it didn't look anything like her, but it really does. To me, you blacked out some important features like the distance between her eyes and the full length of her nose, but there are enough similarities. That jaw is dead on, and I feel really uncomfortable about how close of a match it is. After a while, someone mentions the idea of creating a website, either a blogspot or a Tumblr, to keep everyone updated once the thread gets deleted. Name Goes Here is unsure about it, still clinging on to the idea that maybe his ex-girlfriend just got tired of him and left, instead of being kidnapped, or worse. This causes a slight speculation that maybe they were still together when she disappeared, but this never gets discussed further. Finally, Name Goes Here posts a link, ngh.tumblr.com, and the thread ends shortly after. Luckily, the link still works to this day. You can go to this account and see Name Goes Here's posts from 2011, with 2 final updates, one being in 2012, and one being 2015. The posts throughout 2011 are primarily him answering questions from users in the thread. Through this blog, we are able to get a closer look into the relationship. The relationship was long distance, roughly 700 miles apart, and they had been together for 4 years. They were going to move in together and had not broken up before her disappearance, meaning they were still in a relationship right before she vanished. One day, Name Goes Here woke up and never heard from his partner again. He was never contacted by anyone close to her. Her social media accounts seemed to be gone, and he has no chance of contacting her friends. Her name never appeared in obituaries or marriage records in case she moved on, and she apparently didn't have many friends. The ones she did were apparently not internet savvy. He refuses to tell what state she was from, though, which, again, bothered many, but he preferred to wait until the authorities got back to him. She had no job, and wasn't going to college, and was 32 at the time she disappeared. Someone anonymously asked a load of questions that he seemed to ignore, but the only one he answered was, "Did she seem okay?" To which he just said, "Depressed." If he calls the phone, it only rings, but it no longer goes to voicemail. Someone immediately points out how that doesn't make any sense, as the battery should have been dead long ago, but the number itself could have just been reassigned to a different phone by this point. Name Goes Here says he called it again and it rang 10 times before it hung up on me. I'm assuming they mean no one answered, or hit decline instead. Someone mentions sending a text to the number, but the number never responds. At one point, Name Goes Here mentions that she used to have a crazy ex-boyfriend, but he hasn't been in the picture for years. We also find out that he did eventually move on, and his partner at the time was supporting him through this. I received a call today saying my photo was being investigated. The person on the phone had a bad connection, and I couldn't make out the name in the voicemail they left, but I did catch the contact number, and they told me to call Monday to give a statement. I plan on calling first thing in the morning, and I will update with details once I get them. Monday morning, I called back the number I was left. I was asked standard questions. Where did you last see her? When did you last talk to her? Was she scared of anyone? Did she seem nervous? Did anyone want to hurt her? I gave them pictures, a copy of all my emails, and lots of phone numbers I had. They said there was nobody matching that description in their missing persons database, but they would look into the picture. Sounded very disinterested, and I'm not keeping my hopes up. Small update. One of my ex-friends just called me. Said she hasn't heard from her since September. I hope she just dumped me and ran off. The longer I think about it, and look at the pictures, the more things don't quite match up. Her hands and breasts don't look right. I don't know if that's from exposure or what. And the authorities are just meh about the whole thing. Like they know who's in the pic, and it's not my ex. And finally, for the first time this entire story, we get pictures of what she looks like. He blacked out her eyes, but according to the original image, the eyes were gone, so maybe he felt there was no need to show them. It begins to feel a little too real, but then the Tumblr takes a turn. A month later they post, "Update coming tonight. Back in town now. Crazy shit." But they don't post the update. In fact, they don't post at all until another month passes. Sorry, lost the login info for this Tumblr. Long story, tired now. Basic details. Couldn't stop thinking about this at all. Went east to her hometown, eventually tracked down one of her friends. Last her friend had heard, ex was planning to move out of state. Friend hasn't heard from her in a while either, since just about the time I haven't. Did some digging and found marriage records from 2009 in her name in another state. Am planning a trip there in a few days to see if anything turns up. Sorry it wasn't more exciting, Anons, if any of you are still even reading. No mafioso or anything fun like that. The dealers I did know in her hometown, who knew her, didn't have any information either. I was hoping they had at least heard or saw something. TLDR, went to ex's home state, turned up info on her getting married in another state, following up in a few days. Interesting, but I thought he already said he checked marriage records and found nothing. And now he checked them again and somehow found her name in a 2009 record? Quick info. Brother's not dead. Found him after getting some useful info. Thanks, Anon. Contacted him. He was shocked to hear from me. Would not say anything about sister, my ex-girlfriend. Traveling back to the SE to find and confront him. I need closure. Suddenly, Name Goes Here finds her name in a record and finds out that her brother isn't dead and refused to talk about the ex. Welp, instead of waiting a month to post, he doesn't update until 5 months later. October 2011. He writes 2 posts, both quite unsettling. Stop calling me. Stop talking. Leave me alone. I said I would leave you alone, now leave me alone. And, finally, quiet now. I can sleep. Thank God, no more talking, no more screaming, no more noise. Look, I'll finish the story, but now it just sounds like a cheap ARG twist. Who's writing these posts? Who knows? But 3 years later, maybe I live, she lives, we live, and the blog remains inactive to this day. It's confusing and frustrating that it took this odd ARG twist in the end, and it almost makes me wonder if they either did have an actual mental breakdown, or that their account got hacked for a moment. They seem to take this story very seriously for at least a long time in my opinion, and never showed any odd fictional behavior until half of a year later. But I'm not saying this is entirely true or real either. The sudden twists that her name popped back up in records that he had already checked, that her brother is actually alive, and that we never received more information ever since these giant discoveries feels very abrupt and
Fake and gay.
Up until those last half a dozen posts, I did think this had potential to be real, and it could still be. But what do you think? Insert typical YouTuber outro. Insert friendly gestures to create a warming feeling so now you're more susceptible to my ideas. Use warm feeling environment to insert that analytics are important to me, that it feeds my narcissism without stating how it directly benefits me. Money. Insert how you should care about analytics by fabricating a lie that if you don't boost these numbers up, then content won't be made. Insert call to action terms to create the illusion that you must binge more of my content. Anyway, seriously, thank you all for watching. If you guys like these videos, then I'll try to make more of these. And if you got this far, then hey, go outside, God. Thank you. This is about to be a bit different from the usual videos I post here. Of course, my throat gets really fucked up.